Hi, this is Nancy Soderberg. Just wanted to touch base mid-semester and encourage you to reach out to me if you have any questions at all about the concepts, the current affairs, careers, internships. Reach out, come by office hours, or make a separate appointment, or just give me a call. 646-591-0912 is my cell. Use it. I put together a PowerPoint for you. It's up on Canvas of what to focus on for the midterm. And it is cumulative from the beginning of the semester in terms of concepts and things like that. The multiple choice are focused on only Module 3 and current affairs. So for the multiple choice questions, just focus on the big issues that are happening in DC. I've been posting some of them. Things like what's happening with Ukraine, the WTO case that we just won against the EU Airbus, Kraken in Hong Kong, what's happening in Washington with all these investigations, and just kind of the big headlines is really all I'm looking for. Global Issues Readings, Chapter 6, 7, and 8, 9 and 10 of the Superpower Myth. That's all the multiple choice questions you're going to have to worry about. What I want you to do is focus on the concepts. And there will be two other sections, short definitions. So, for instance, define the clash of civilization and how it applies today to a certain country. And what you want to do for Clash of Civilization, say that it was written by Sam Huntington or some guy around the end of the Cold War. It was in 1993. Sam Huntington was at Harvard. And he basically says that because of globalization, the West and the rest, so really I'm looking for the West, which is us and Europe, are clashing with the Islamic world because globalization is pushing us together. And the reason that we're going to clash is globalization, but also because of the vast differences in our two cultures. One's not better than the other. They're just different. Different relationships with God, within the family, within cultures. And so conflict is likely. So that's the theory. And then I say, how does it apply to today? Are we clashing with the Muslim world in Yemen, in Iraq, in Bosnia? Pick a country and make your case as to whether we are or are not. I don't care whether we are or are not in your view, just that you have facts of the current day. It could be terrorism, anything. It has to be with the Islamic world. So write an essay on that. They're very short, just really a paragraph defining the concept and then a paragraph on the actual issue as today. So you want to do that with containment. Came out in the Cold War by George Kennan from the embassy in Moscow, and it was a slow, vigilant policy to keep our communist expansion in check. It was supposed to take 12 to 15 years, ended up taking another 30, 42. So from after the late 40s, after the Second World War, all the way till 1989. And then we won. And so you want to be able to define that and then put it to any threat that we're containing today: climate, terrorism, migration, and then talk about how we are containing that threat today. Same with end of history, that it was, yay, democracy won at the end of the Cold War. All those other isms, fascism, everything else is over. And then, was he right? Are there other isms that are coming up now, like fundamentalism, terrorism, nationalism, other threats that have emerged since that was written? And then understand those kinds of concepts, soft power, hard power, all the ones that we've talked about. So just define the issue, the time frame, and then how it applies to today. So those are the short definitions. Just make sure you understand the key terms. If you review the PowerPoints, the videos, done the readings, you'll be fine. It's not a gotcha, just trying to make sure that you understand the key concepts. And then you'll have a couple of essays where that has to get developed a little bit more. And I'll ask you to take one of the concepts in the semester and apply a little bit more in depth of how it applies to something that's happening in the world today. And you want to weave in some facts. So brush up on something you're interested in so that you can talk knowledgeably about it. I have the PowerPoints have various countries going on, or the some of the movies that are videos that have been put up. Take a look, and I just want you to have a couple of facts about an issue that you care about. So it could be Afghanistan, Iraq, Yemen, climate change, terrorism, just something so you can talk about it knowledgeably. Test should take about 2 hours to complete. And I went through the modules and just listed what I thought you should know. So just review these materials, make sure you know these acronyms. Anyone in policy loves acronyms. So, national interest, sovereignty. Remember, sovereignty came from the Treaty of Westphalia at the end of the 30 Years' War in 1600s. And it's the basis of international law today. The UN was founded on sovereignty, which means that states have the right to do whatever they want within their own borders. Know the UN history, the Bretton Woods, World Bank, IMF, just the key mechanisms of the international community. NATO, what Article 5 was, is an attack on one, is an attack on all of us. And then generally the approaches of the Clinton, Bush, Obama, and Trump administration. Take a look at the 2017 National Security Strategy. Bush was all about preemption, Trump's all about America first, and global engagement was pretty much what Clinton and Obama sought. Also know hard, soft, and smart power. And when I say give me an example of smart power, I'm asking you to give me an example of some clearly labeled hard power and some clearly labeled soft power, which is what makes up smart power. Hard power is use of force, economic sanctions. Soft power is persuading the country through envoys, the Peace Corps, exchanges of kids, negotiations, and economic aid on a humanitarian level. So I just want to understand that you know these concepts. Module 2, there's a summary of that. It's basically the human rights, genocide, responsibility to protect, which doesn't really work too well today, so be prepared to talk about the history of those and how. Glance through the summary of the key threats in the Director of National Intelligence and understand what our basic cyber terrorism and other threats are. Understand that a terrorist is a freedom fighter in others' eyes. They both use exactly the same tactics, so don't get into that trick. So Nelson Mandela was a South African's terrorist, so was Jerry Adams, but to the people involved, they're freedom fighters, and that applies to today. There are a lot of people in ISIS that think they're a freedom fighter, so try and look at it from their eyes, not justifying it, but just understanding it. And then just the basic facts on climate, population, migration, disease, poverty, food, water crises, those big monster issues that we're dealing with. Understand what the Sustainable Development Goals are, is essentially to eradicate poverty in the next 15 years. And just generally how President Trump has been approaching some of these. Again, just very general, don't worry about too many details. And lastly is the module that we're going to have both essays on, and the multiple choice. And it's pretty much the international economic and political structures. Understand trade, the terms of free, fair, liberal, mercantilism when people use protectionism. Liberal is not Democrat versus conservative. It just means that the governments don't intervene. Understand modern slavery. It's here in Jacksonville. Take a look around you. And basically, what is the threats of globalizations? There are winners and losers. Again, that WTO policy that we just won in the EU. See, there's a typo there. The WTO, not the WTOF. And outsourcing, and then the trade agreements that the president has been working on. And lastly, what Friedman said about the world is flat. Obviously, the world's not flat, but what he meant by the Indian that he was talking to is the information is now available to everyone. So you as college students are going to be competing against the rest of the world. So Indians, Chinese, all of these jobs are now global as well. And Zachariah, Rise of the Rest, it's basically the mints and the BRICS coming up, that it's not just the Europeans and the US anymore, it's the middle countries, Indonesia, Nigeria, Brazil are all coming up. It's not a bad thing, but it just means that the pie is getting bigger, not smaller. And for the essays, again, just understand what the basic concept is, apply it to today, and whether you think it's right or wrong, be able to argue the other side and have just a general sense of what's going on around you, not just for this class, but I hope for life. Again, just reach out to me if you have any questions at all. If you didn't do well in the quizzes, I'll walk you through what you should have done. All those issues on the quizzes, the concepts are going to pop back up on the midterm, so you need to know them. And I will make myself available to make sure that you have time to go over it. And so reach out if you can, and good luck.